Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Yael, Grushka-Cockayne, and Callie Thompson. Yael is the Senior Associate Dean for Professional Degree Programs here at the Darden School of Business, and Callie is the Assistant Dean for Academic Operations for the Professional Degree Programs here at Darden. And I recently connected with them to talk more about electives in our Part-Time MBA program. If you're a prospective student interested in this program, curious about the academic experience and curriculum, this episode is essential listening. So without further ado, here's my interview with Yael, Grushka-Cockayne, and Callie Thompson. Yael, Callie, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Brett.
It's great to have you here. Yael, how's everything? How are you doing?
Everything's great. Thank you for having me. It's a beautiful Tuesday.
You're everywhere. You were just in Roslyn. Now you're back in Charlottesville.
You yesterday, yes.
Yeah.
Now I'm back in Charlottesville, yes.
Callie, how are you doing?
Doing really well. We had such a great kickoff to the start of the year, and now it really feels like we're just getting into our rhythm. Exciting time of year.
Yeah, there was just a weekend residency last weekend and coincided with Friday night. There was a networking reception with employers. They had a bunch of alumni.
Yeah,
Sands Family Grounds, so much fun to see them. They were all excited to be back. It's it feels like the start of school. Fall is here. It feels right to me. So it's great to have you here. We're going to talk about electives in our part-time MBA program. I was saying before we got started, this is probably one of the more common questions that we've gotten from prospective students about what electives will be offered, what can I expect from the elective period, and now we have some details to share as our first class of part-time MBA students move through the last few quarters of the core curriculum into the elective period. Yael, before we get into all of that, though, some of our listeners may not have had a chance to listen to your earlier podcast interviews, which they totally should.
Yeah, of course they should.
But tell us a little bit more about who you are and your role.
I'm here primarily on this call. I think you invited me to the podcast because I'm the Senior Associate Dean for the program, in charge of all of our professional degree programs, Part-Time MBA, and also the MSBA. I'm also a faculty at Darden, so I teach. I'm part of the quantitative analysis area, a member of that area, and I teach core classes on decision analysis. I teach electives on project management, data science. Those have been the main courses I've taught over the years. But I'm excited to talk to you about this.
Yeah, and I think you might actually be teaching an elective in this first slate of part-time.
I sure am. For the first time, I'm very excited.
All right, Callie, tell us more about you. Who are you and what's your role?
So I am lucky to be a part of the academic operations team. It allows me to work very closely with students, faculty, as well as the two of you on all types of things, but certainly on electives. We get really into the weeds with our faculty, with the folks that help us schedule the faculty, comparing calendars, all that kind of thing.
All right. Thank you both for coming on the podcast. I want to check in, just talk about how things are going with the Part-Time MBA classes. Now, we have two classes of Part-Time MBA students. We just welcomed our second class of Part-Time MBA students, our Part-Time MBA class of 2026, to grounds in August. They are off and running with their classes. Our first class of Part-Time MBA students still working through the core curriculum in quarter 7, 8, thereabouts. So Yael, how is everybody doing? How are things going?
It's going great. Like anything new, we're all learning every day. So every day that the program advances, we're new territory, and our students are very helpful and real team players and collaborators in trying to kind of think through how it's evolving. And by all means, it's evolving great. It's nice to see Sands Family Ground, filled with activities on the evenings where folks have in-person class. We have 2 cohorts worth, so a section, first year section, a second year section. So that's 130 students or more. So last night was a lot of activity and excitement, which is great. It's also good for the faculty. This way there's more than one faculty there, faculty coming in and out, teaching first years and second years. So it's nice to get that kind of vibe going in the community going, and for them to learn from each other. Part of why folks attend Darden to begin with is the networking, and this is a way to network with more students and to get exposed to more industries and more experiences. So it's going great, and I'm excited because I think we already have the next deadline coming up, so we can already think about our enrollment for next year. And it will be nice at the end of 25 to graduate our first cohort. We have some ways beforehand, and I'm excited for them to experience the electives for sure.
Yeah, this time of year, you can't help but compare where we were last year and the year before that. You always sort of compare the years. And this one it's been such a treat to be able to see the two cohorts together, and to see the relationships that have formed, the vibe, as Yael mentioned, just being so positive. We just got off of a call with two of our leaders from the Part-Time MBA Class of 25 who lead the Part-Time Student Association, the PSA. And they continue to just have wonderful things to say about what that having classes on the nights that they do have class in the same time, being able to share a meal together, to share all types of relationships and connections that they're forming, not just with their classmates, but with folks in the other cohort.
Yeah, I love seeing everybody here on those Monday and Thursday nights when the students are in person together. Both classes are here. I will say when we had one class of part-time students, there was energy, but it was different than having 130 people all there together. It's a real hive of activity. We also have a lot of students who show up early. You start to see people come in the afternoon taking calls, and like you can kind of start feeling the build up to evening class. So that then they put the food out and students start showing up for the meal. Like it's a really nice scene. We have part-time class visits coming up, and I'm excited to have some of our visitors come and see what this looks like in this latest iteration of this. Now that we have 130 or so part-time students, we actually have over 400 students across all of the programs that happen here in the DC area, which is kind of amazing if you think about where we started. August 2016, one section of Executive MBA students to now 3 programs, over 400 students.
What I also like is that we're seeing more and more students see or view SFG as their home or as a place to stop by. And part-time students are kind of hopping in on the weekends when there's the EMBAs there and events, and coming in for the Friday Night Live or the networking event, or other events when they occur. So it's nice to see that there's also kind of some fluidity to it. Again, being on the 30 and 31st floor of a building is nice because the view is spectacular, but it has its downside because it's not, people don't just pass by, right? Like you have to actually consciously go upstairs and be deliberate in that. But we're seeing more and more of our students kind of stop by, which is great. It adds to the campus atmosphere.
And one of the things that's upcoming as well is our first part-time MBA global elective. Group of students will head to Italy in the not too distant future. Yael, tell us a little bit more about what those students will be doing.
The trip to Italy is a great one. They really get to kind of understand the local business approach. There's typically has been a lot of emphasis from we've had courses in Italy in the past for many years. Luke, one of our faculty member who's Italian, he's crafted a great curriculum, great group of students, a great group of companies that host our students, and they interact with them, primarily focused around luxury brands. Not that bad if you can imagine some luxury brands in Italy, which I think we can all imagine at least some cars and wines and maybe some outfits too. And so they really get to understand kind of the mentality, the processes that these organizations take, and just the kind of approach to doing business in the local country. I am trying to remember what cities they're visiting this year. I think Rome, but I'm not 100% sure. I know that in the past, one trip visited Rome, another trip visited, I think, Rome and Florence, and another trip visited Milan. I don't recall which of those cities the part-time students are currently going on. Gopika would know because I think Gopika is joining them. She's from our career team.
Oh, I didn't know she was joining. I'm so excited for her. I've had Yael obviously you've led several. I've also had the chance to go abroad with Darden students, and it really is, really no matter where you go, the schedule and the opportunity to sort of have time in country with your classmates, with your faculty, with members of the staff who join. It is transformational, and people point to that as part of the transformation that is Darden that you've experienced in all different types of way, that just being a really poignant opportunity for students. So many of our students, obviously in the Executive MBA program, take multiple chances at going abroad, and they've just really always have the best things to say about it. It's a real highlight.
Yeah, I was struck just talking with some of our colleagues who work for the Center for Global Initiatives that on this global elective, there are certainly part-time students, but there are also 4 executive MBA students. And we have some executive MBAs, at least 2 executive MBA students who are going from another global residency to this global elective. So I'm trying to imagine a student going from Argentina to Italy, coming from Finland, Estonia to Italy. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I was struck by that.
It's not a bad life, for sure. And let me kind of in the context of our conversation today, those are electives, meaning what's helpful to think about is that the students opt in to most of these courses, and they make their choices, and it complements the other electives that they choose. So, they can add, if they are interested in a global focus, they can also take a global consulting project. And again, these are types of electives that you can take in addition to the other more regular routine or more academic in nature courses, but these are more experiential. And so we encourage students to really choose what makes sense to them, where will they learn the most, what will kind of advance them as a global mindset of a global leader. Those are kind of some things that we think about.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about part-time MBA and electives. I mentioned that this is something we got a lot of questions about from students as we were getting started, launched the program, and we had to tell folks, hey, just hang in there. We're going to have more information. We got this 18-month core curricular period that's going to happen, and then the students will start electives. So for those of you who are just learning about the part-time MBA program, the first 18 months you do the core curriculum. You do it as a group. It's cohort-based. It's lockstep. Students moving through that together as a group. And then you enter an elective period. And it's at that point that you can choose how fast or how slow you'd like to complete the remaining credits. And the program can be completed anywhere from 28 to 48 months, with the standard pacing being 33 months. And so we're going to talk a lot about the elective period, because now we do have electives to talk about. Callie, how does the actual registering process work for students? Prospective students may wonder, how do people actually register for these classes? How does it work?
Yeah, so in contrast to the first 18 months you mentioned is the cohort experience, and that's when the Darden registrar takes care of everybody's enrollment for them. And so students don't need to worry about when do I sign up for classes. All of those required classes are taken care of. When it comes time for electives registering, we've got a couple of things that go live to the students just to get them prepared before they even have to hit a button to register themselves. So we have something called a catalog, which is a cohort-specific Canvas-based, which is our learning management system, Canvas-based tool where you can click through, you can have links to who the faculty members are that are offering the courses, descriptions about the course itself, which courses qualify for focus areas, which is another thing we can talk more about, as well as the grading components. So just to give you a flavor of what the course is. In addition to that, it also houses some sort of standard FAQs that are often on students' minds at the time of registering, as well as the schedule itself. So when are these classes meeting? Every once in a while, classes are scheduled against one another. So students have to make a decision about which course is most important to them, and which course they want to enroll in. Other times we try, to the extent we can, to sort of stagger them so that students have maximum options, really. And so after the catalog is sort of out there to students and they have time to ask their questions, we do go live with registration. So through the student management system, this is something that is sort of managed by the Darden registrar. So again, the same team that's enrolling students in the core classes, but this time the students have the chance to enroll themselves. Every once in a while, a class fills. Pretty rare with this first set. A couple of them have lower caps, in which case a student who maybe wasn't able to get into the course can add themselves to a wait list. And then it's just a matter of watching the numbers go up and down in sort of a period of time where you've registered yourself, but it's that the act of registering yourself in a particular course is not binding. You actually do have a period of time after that to consider your options and maybe as your life changes, as your considerations for your professional advancement change, all that kind of thing, you can make those changes.
Yeah, one of the things I was struck by is that, the program seems really committed to giving students optionality and flexibility. And so folks who know a little bit about our part-time program know that classes are typically Monday and Thursday evening, 6 to 9:30. But in the elective period, I think you also introduced some classes that meet on Wednesdays to kind of eliminate some conflict, to give students more choice. You want to speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, I think if I could kind of wave my magic wand, which I don't have, regrettably, I would have electives every night and as many as I could offer, meaning I would have kind of a whole set of options for the students to choose from, because I think that way we can meet more students and really kind of accommodate their busy lives. And some people want a relief from the Monday, Thursday routine that they kind of got used to. And some like the consistency. So what we're trying to do is still offer Monday and Thursdays classes. But now that it's electives, students don't have to take those classes. And given that there are other electives to choose from, we said, well, why not let students have as many bites at the apple, if you will, as possible by opening it up and not having courses conflict. And there's going to be limitations to that. And there's going to be times where we do have to schedule courses against each other. That is not necessarily always a bad thing. Sometimes that means that we're just offering more and more and more selection, but there's limited number of days a week that we can really put these courses in. This happens in our other formats as well, just to kind of point out. Full-time residential students meet in the morning, 8 to 1, every day, 4 days a week. Then when they come to the elective, suddenly they can take all afternoon classes for those non-morning folks. They love showing up at, 11:45 for their first class of the day. So suddenly in electives, they have all these afternoon classes that can go as late as 6 or even 9 p.m. sometimes. So yes, it's a departure from what they were used to, but it's optional because there's plenty of electives in the morning too to choose from. With our EMBA students, same thing. You can have courses on Fridays like you're used to with the resident during the OGRs, but now you can choose one of 3 courses, and you don't have to have classes on the Friday if you don't want to choose one of those 3 courses, because you can stick to a Saturday, Sunday schedule or vice versa. Like now we're giving the students really are in control a lot more. And with that control kind of comes the responsibility. They can control their schedule a little bit more, but then they have the responsibility to pick and choose which one they want. In the case of the part-time electives, we're trying to, again, balance out how many nights they might be busy, but also open up the door to as many opportunities as we can.
And Callie, one of the things for folks who are listening to this conversation to keep in mind is that UVA is going to require you to be enrolled in at least one class per quarter. But how do you help people think about how many electives they might be able to take in a given quarter? Some of this just comes down to schedule, but that may be something that's on listeners' minds as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. We've been focusing in the last few minutes on the classes that actually have in-person and Zoom requirements on the weeknights. There are also elective opportunities that are completely what we call asynchronous or self-paced. And those classes, while you still have a faculty member and you're in touch with the faculty member, and there's very often deadlines sprinkled in, it's not the same traditional class time. And so because of that opportunity, because of other ones that we talk to students about when we're sort of in the thick of this, you really could theoretically be enrolled in quite a few electives if that was your intention. You could be in the Monday and the Wednesday and the Thursday. You could do a distance. You could be in the global if you want to do the global. So suddenly a quarter that you maybe in the core experience, that first 18 months was really just the 2 courses, almost every quarter, that cadence of 2 courses per quarter, per quarter, per quarter. Suddenly you can increase that. You can also drop down. So it could be that a student decides, you know what, this particular portion of my year is really wild at work. I'm going to drop to the minimum one elective. It could be the distance asynchronous elective, and we'd be really sad because we wouldn't see them on site. But it is the case that students could take a quarter where they lessen their load.
Yeah, and I think that flexibility is important to highlight. I mean, a lot of the part-time MBA, the inspiration for the program was around flexibility, but also customization, personalization, which speaks to your points. Or thinking about their schedule, thinking about everything that's going on, some of the interests that they might have professionally.
And it's going to kind of continue to expand in terms of that flexibility, including the opportunity to take some MBA electives. So those folks who do feel like they have time and they prefer to kind of concentrate some of their in-person on the weekend, again, not all students potentially, but a part-time student may have evolving needs over the time that they're in the program too. They can take a quarter where they have some MBA electives, executive format electives, and therefore they can come in on the weekend and take their in-person classes then. So again, just trying to build in that flexibility.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. I think that students who are considering this, on the one hand, the kicking off with the cohort experience is is really important, I think, just for the relationships that you build and for getting through those core requirements together and keeping that real cadence. But, most of us don't know exactly what our life is going to look like in 1, 2, 3 years ahead of us. So having the flexibility, getting the information out to students as early as we possibly can so that they can start to build a picture of what their life will look like once they enter electives, protecting those Monday, Thursdays for the folks who it's got to be that way or bust, and allowing them to have those conversations in advance with partners, with parents, with children, with coworkers and bosses is really our job.
Well, I think one of the more exciting things that we don't talk about this that often is the alignment of the calendars. The fact that people now can easily take electives across program. That wasn't always easy to do. Yeah, I know we've had full-time MBA students come up here and take electives with executive MBA students. I expect we'll have some executive MBA students who are interested in the part-time MBA electives, vice versa, as you've mentioned. You have a whole slate of J-term electives that are, this is a short 10-day period between New Year's and MLK Day that are potential enrollments for both groups of students. So, I mean, that's very exciting. This is new territory for Darden.
Oh, the electives in the J term are going to be super exciting this year because many of them, actually at least 2 or 3, I know, are going to have students from all formats. I think 3, maybe Callie will correct me, but you're going to have courses that are more like travel courses, so they're not on grounds, they're elsewhere. We have in-person classes, we have hybrid classes, we have every kind of combo that you can think of, and as a result, we open them up to students from the full-time residential program, but also from the MBA and the part-time, and it's going to be great for all of them to kind of get to work side by side with each other.
Yeah, and not just have the diversity of perspective in the classroom, diversity of schedules we've talked about, but also to be able to get some full-time MBA students. They love to come to Roslyn to see Sands Family Grounds, to see what all the hype is about. They've enjoyed coming up, and vice versa. Students in the professional degree formats, they like the excuse to get down to Seville. So we do, like Yael said, in J-term have 2 that will meet in person in Seville, and we'll have representation from all 3 MBA formats, which is so exciting, as well as others that are in the all distance format, one that will be a traveling course, and yeah, lots going on.
Well, let's talk about the elective lineup for the part-time MBA students here in this initial set of elective quarters. I know there's going to be more classes announced as we go forward in the program. But yeah, how does the list of electives get developed? Can you bring us into that process a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's an iterative and ever-evolving process that we have to take into account several different perspectives. One is definitely like the student perspective. What do they need? What kind of courses do they want and need and seek? And even the students themselves, you can imagine even a single section of 65 students could have varying needs and interests and desires. Some need some skills and capabilities and learning for their jobs. So they're really kind of upskilling or filling in the gaps or looking for things that they require, or they know that they're going to need as they progress in their career. And then there's also students who come to Darden to experience courses that enrich them as individuals and really about personal growth. We have a very popular elective called Business Ethics Through Literature, which I don't know that any boss is sitting there and, describing to their employees like, oh, I have to go to business school to take this course. But I know that some could say that this was the most valuable course that they've experienced at Darden because it pushed them personally to think more deeply. We have we have courses on ultimate questions, and again, some big kind of arching issues in life. But then we have very tactical courses like the one I teach, which is about project management. And while I think, and it is true that there are ethical concerns and there's a lot of personal growth in project management, I'm also kind of aware of the fact that my elective is primarily tactical, somewhat strategic, but much more professionally oriented than maybe some of the more personal courses. So we're looking for a blend. We're looking for a blend of courses to satisfy the students' desires and needs. We're looking for timely courses that are relevant to the world around us. And then, of course, we also need the faculty to teach it. So we're constantly triangulating between these things and thinking about the schedule and availability, thinking about which courses go hand in hand. We don't want to overwhelm a single quarter with only courses that are all marketing or all finance. We want to make sure that there's a blend, again, fully acknowledging that not only do students need different things, but also each student should diversify to some degree, or at least give them the opportunity to try and do so. So that's kind of the set of criteria that we have in front of us when we try to craft the catalog. And therefore, we come up with a list of electives. We've also worked with our area coordinators to kind of say, what are your best hits? Like, what are some courses that are very, we know from historical trends, from other cohorts that are well-received, useful, important to the students. And so we kind of try to ensure that we have them in the program too. And then there's always going to be a space that is left for some innovation. So there's always going to be some room for new opportunities and new electives that emerge to both innovate with the faculty, but also with the students on kind of cutting edge ideas. So does that help, Brett, a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think people always wonder, like, where does this list come from? Like, how does it get developed? This is a pretty common question. I think so. We also spent a fair amount of time talking with prospective students about this, a little bit high level, as people have asked about the elective lineup and when will they know more, and just a little bit about how the process works and the timing of it in particular. That Darden tends to think in academic years, right? So, the reason why the elective process plays out the way it does is, teaching, allocation, all this kind of stuff really happens around the academic year cycle. And so I know that a lot of this kind of kicks off, seems like, during the summer. Is that right? As you think about, putting the elective list together, finding faculty, I mean, how does the timing work?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's, Callie can probably share more, but actually it all starts way deep around kind of the middle of the winter, actually. Actually, it starts in the winter. Like, it starts December, January. Some of it depends on faculty recruiting. So the moment where we can solidify our lineup is when we have all our faculty on board. We know who we're working with, who's leaving, who's staying. Even then, there's going to be maybe some late breaking kind of changes at the end, but hopefully it's pretty stable. So we have that process, and we have a process where we need to kind of commit to certain schedules for each and every faculty. Academic years typically go from August to August. So when we plan or the end of August to the end of August. So we plan an academic year, the cycle, what we call Q1, so to speak, or quarter one, or the beginning, is at the end of August every year. And if you think about that, then you have a full year. I know this is going to go against my quantitative analysis mindset. We divide our year into 6, you heard me right, 6 quarters. And we schedule in blocks. Basically, we schedule courses typically in blocks of about 6 to 7 weeks, and those are our, so to speak, quarters. And so we have 6 periods to plan on an annual basis, and it all has to start in August. In order to get it ready for the end of August, we actually have to start in January. And so we look at last year's schedule. We go out to the various area coordinators and through them to the entire faculty body. We say, who is planning on teaching what, and when, and to which audience. Then we have a few individuals who work super hard by aggregating all of this information and making sure that we have a good spread across the various courses. And then we can also identify gaps. Where are some electives that we don't have staffed? Where do we need to fill in some gaps? And we can do some work behind that. Typically by May, it is fairly stable. There's some given that, but typically around May, faculty know what they're going to teach the next year. We know the students get notified what's going to be offered next year. That's typically when we go out with it. But there is some give with that date, depending on when we need students to commit to classes. So it has also some process has to do with when the students actually enroll in the class. But I know that there's a lot of moving parts. I feel like there's a Gantt chart that we can draw that would help with some of this, but maybe that's just my project management mindset.
That's more or less what we have every year. And it's tough because on the one hand, I think what students really can take away from this is that in every quarter, Yael talked about the blend and the balance and the, taking into account what students need at different points in the program. And that's what you can know for sure. What you don't necessarily know for sure is what next year's lineup of electives, what we often refer to as round 2 of your registration, you won't know exactly what's going to be offered to you when you're in the midst of registering for electives in round 1. But by then you'll have your sea legs. You sort of get a sense of what types of courses are offered, more or less the schedule. And so it's kind of nice in a way that, the first academic year does not have any electives. The next academic year mostly has core and required courses. Towards the end, there is the first few elective quarters, and then you're off to the races just with a fully elective experience in the third year. So all of those, at every step of the way, we sort of walk through with students what they can expect from registration, from their lineup, from the catalog, all that.
Callie, you mentioned focus areas earlier, and these were originally introduced, a couple of years ago, it feels like, executive MBA students in mind, students who wanted to demonstrate maybe to a prospective employer, to the world at large, they've developed an expertise or taken a chunk of courses in a particular area. What would you want to highlight about focus areas for part-time MBA students?
Yeah, the summary you just gave is the right one. I mean, it's very often we refer to it as concentrations in other schools. In the full-time MBA format, they call it concentrations, but functionally focus areas are the same, achieve the same goal. Really is an opportunity for students to, stretch their legs in a given area and take some register for courses that are that qualify for a given focus area. So I can list some of them, and again, with that same blend in mind, we try to make sure that throughout their experience, round 1 and round 2, students are getting that opportunity to be able to take a class that qualifies for a given focus area. And it might not be till the very end that you qualify. You need 3 electives in a given focus area to graduate with that focus area to have earned it. And so some folks will focus on just doing them all at once for one area. Some will spread it out. It's really up to you. And we give you a tracker sort of sorts to be able to say, okay, I took that, but I'm not going to take this, really, but I will next semester,
for the
so
students. And it's kind of to help guide them a little bit to think about their electives and the combination of electives. Not everybody finds it relevant, meaning some folks don't really put too much weight on it, and they prefer to just choose elective that sound interesting or get exposed to different new ideas in different industries, hear from different faculty that they may have not seen before. We try to bring in faculty to the electives lineup that the students haven't necessarily experienced in the core. I mean, some they want to have to see them back. So sometimes there's requests to kind of get the beloved ones back. So it's kind of a blend of that. And the focus areas is just, again, another tool that our students found useful when they think about which combination of courses can really help them feel like they've dug into a certain area. Sometimes we like to talk about the breadth of the core as the top part of a T, and then the electives as the kind of vertical leg, if you will, that people can go deeper. And these focus areas are a way to do that and accomplish that. If you're taking a focus area in strategy or in finance or ESG and social impact, then you're going to take a set of courses that may help you get there. But of course, it's not anything formal in the system. You don't have to declare it. You can get several focus areas depending on your electives, and it's administrated basically at the end of your program. You get a letter from our registrar kind of signaling to you that you accomplished that. And again, it's another place to consult if you're debating which courses to take. This is a good place to look at.
Yeah, I appreciate the point around it not being on your transcript. I think sometimes folks know in that undergraduate model, right? You have to declare a major. It is not like that. It's kind of there if you want to use it, if you want to take advantage of it. Many students take a lot of different kinds of classes. Even when I talk to the full-time MBA students, obviously the program has concentrations, all this kind of stuff. Many of them are not focused on the concentrations when they're picking their classes. They're just taking, this looks of interest to me. This aligns with what I want to do career-wise. And then they find out that they've earned a concentration at the very end of it. So I think, Darden being a general management school, probably it makes sense that we attract people who are interested in a lot of different things. Plus, you've just gone through the core and discovered you have all these interests that you didn't know that you knew you had when you started this program. That's kind of the idea here.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's exactly right. And in a way, I know that you've had previous podcasts, Brett, where you talk about our GEMBA designation versus our EMBA, our global executive as opposed to EMBA. The global, if you can think about it, another way to think about it is a little bit like a focus area, because they're taking more than one course. They're taking several courses that have this global emphasis and global focus, and that's where they got that designation. So it's a signal, kind of a bit, and in that case, it's a little bit more formal, but it's again a way to both identify to yourself and to signal what it is that you've spent your time thinking about. Yeah.
Well, can you tell us about it, maybe a few of the classes? I think people always enjoy stories or just examples to help make this a little bit more real. Yael,
Sure.
is there a class or two? I mean, obviously project management,
Yeah,
which
let's not
everybody
talk
should
about,
take.
we're not going to talk about project management, so I'm not going to
Okay.
self-promote. That can be a different podcast. We can have a self-promotion, Yael self-promotion podcast. We have an all-time favorite. Negotiations is always a roaring success. Students love taking negotiations. So we're going to offer a section of negotiations in Q12, a fun course that has a lot of nuance around, how to approach a negotiation, how to remove some of the stress, how to think about it in a more comprehensive way, so both parties walk away better off and satisfied with the way that they negotiated. And so folks love it because it's very interactive and it's very dynamic. So that's one course that I'm super excited about. We have a course on telling financial stories, which combines both quants, but also a lot of visualizations and communication. So very important need these days, not only to be able to do some work, but also to present and then pitch and analyze and kind of talk about the story. And so I think students are going to really enjoy that story. That's going to be offered in Q10. So it's coming up kind of in March, April timeframe. We have data visualizations and analytics, again, a more quants oriented course. We have a course, some economic oriented courses, one on more emerging markets and one on more in the European market. So kind of two economic perspectives, very interesting and changing, daily, very timely courses relevant to world affairs. Another very timely course that has taken a whole new spin in recent years is a course on financial crises. Bob Bruner, our former dean, has now retired, but he has left us in good hands, and faculty have carried on this course and kind of developed an updated version, because some of us know that different parts of the world have been going through various financial crises, some more than others, but it's definitely important for us to reflect on history and what we learned from those arcs over history. So those are a few examples. There's many more that I haven't mentioned, but hopefully that gives you a sense, Brett.
Yeah, Callie, anything you would want to highlight here? Any courses that jumped out to you?
I mean, project management with Dr.
Thank you. Nicely done.
I mean, but I'm primed. One, she's sitting here and we're joking about it, but also her, our PSA leaders were just excited to share with her that they got into the class, so they're excited to take it with her. We mentioned, the J-term opportunities. We haven't talked too much about another option for students, which is the Darden Independent Study route. And so that's an opportunity for students with a special interest to work under the supervision of a particular Darden faculty. So you can approach a Darden faculty member with an idea and work with them to come up with a proposal. It's a process that you can apply and actually and put in place a course that's a bona fide 1.5 credit course. And it's something that students, not all students decide to do it, but a lot of folks decide that they've got a passion and an interest in something, and they jump into the DIS process. So that's something I'd highlight.
I also want to mention, Callie, that we have nearly every quarter, we have an option that is doesn't have an in-person component, meaning there is an option that is more online, pure online. And in some cases, it's a blend between pure online that is synchronous versus asynchronous, so more kind of like self-paced content. We typically don't have more than one option, but we do have one per quarter, which gives some flexibility to students. So if they can't be there in person, if they need to kind of control their schedule, if they are night owls that like to take a course at 2 a.m., or morning owls that like to take classes at 7 a.m., they can control their schedule. And so we have a few courses that were developed especially for the part-time students, meaning brand new courses hot off the press that have not existed previously. Mike Lennox developed a course like this. Jean Litka, our acting dean, has developed a course like this. Both of them pioneers in the space of online learning. So they've really kind of focused on putting a set of materials and setting a curriculum of a course that takes the students through a different type of experience. It's very much self-led, some teamwork. So there is coordination with the team, some instructor visibility. So you have time to consult and kind of be coached more on an individual basis with an instructor. But the idea of the course is that there is additional flexibility just by the way that you consume it. So I'm super excited. There's been a decent amount of investment on Darden's behalf in these courses, and more are coming. There's at least 2 or 3 more in the pipeline that are being worked on. So Doug Thomas is working on, Anthony Paloma is working on one. I know that Raj is a frequent visitor to the studio because he also likes to think, and more faculty keep expressing interest as well. Callie is reminding me that there's a couple of additional, we spoke about the J-term opportunities. We spoke about all these various ways to consume electives. We're also always have interesting, exciting courses that are kind of more unique, I would say, and specific. We have a course to the U.S. South, brand new course that is being offered, actually a joint effort between a faculty member and one of our former executive MBA students who is from the South, and felt like it's important to get folks exposed to just what is business in the South? What does it look like? What are some top of mind things to know and to learn about it? Both some historical perspective on the importance of the region and some of the dynamics and the struggles, but also the role it plays today in the economy and socially too. And so I'm excited about that course. I think it's going to be very exciting. I'm still trying to piggyback and join them, but we'll see, because I've never been to Mississippi and Alabama. So, and I believe those are the 2 states they're visiting this year. In addition to that, we also have a very popular course to Gettysburg. It's a leadership course where folks go and kind of visit the battlefield. There's some in-class experience where they talk about the history and some leadership lessons throughout, but they also go and they learn on grounds by visiting Gettysburg.
Yeah, and that's a good example of a course that's been around for a while. A good mix of courses that are sort of tried and true and are always offered. They're not quite core and required courses, but something like negotiations is, you can almost always expect that it'll be in the lineup because so many students are drawn to that as a skill building opportunity. And then like some of the examples Yael just mentioned, brand new, hot off the press, things that faculty get so excited about to be able to share with students. And this course that you just mentioned, Yael, is one of them. I think for me, when I hear about these courses, I always ask myself, would I be interested in this course? Would I succeed in this course? I like it very much in advising calls when students start the call by saying, no, that's not for me. I know it's not for me. And by the end of the call, just hearing a little bit about the unique take that faculty, the unique approaches that they take, what students have said about the course, what types of students really surprise themselves by ending up signing up for an elective that you would never think that you would do. And then you love it. And then it's the one that you love more than any of your other courses. So it's really, it's a fun time. And like we said, it's not like you have to, know by one date and one date only exactly what your experience is going to be. You have time to flesh it out and have these conversations and make changes.
Well, Callie, we talked a little bit about the timeline for elective development when it gets shared with students. Obviously, we have this initial announcement, which we are going to be sharing some updates on the website about the course offerings here, so students can go and review that. But when can we expect the next slate of electives to be announced for the part-time MBA students?
Yeah, so Yael mentioned that the process gets started in sort of middle of winter, and then by the beginning of spring, about halfway through the spring semester, we start to go live with the catalog and give students the chance to look. Now that's for round 2, if that makes sense. So round 1, we already went live with, but again, it was only half of the academic year that they were going to have to register for. Everything else was registered for them. So they meaning the current second year class, they just were given the opportunity to register, I think, in the last 4 weeks or so. And then they'll have to make some decisions within the next couple of weeks. That's really just for everything that comes at the end of their second spring semester after core is over into their first summer of electives. And then that's that. So round one is really only 3 quarters. Of course, it's also the first J-term experience, also your global residency experience. So it's all sort of packed into that second year. And then once the third academic year starts, that's when I was initially answering your question that when you're into round 2, which covers far more quarters, you end up registering for that in the springtime. So they're staggered experiences, and it can be difficult to describe because of the quarter system. We realize that that's sort of a funny way to name our quarters, the way our terms are named. But essentially, when students are just about to wrap up their core experience, so residency 2, what we call R2, that's right around the time that they get to register for that third year of full electives. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Yeah. And for folks who are wondering, residency 2 back in Charlottesville, that's the last thing you do as a group, as a cohort. There's bookends around this core curricular 18-month period that we've been talking about. You have a week. First thing you do is a week in Charlottesville, then you have those 18 months. And then the last thing you do is residency 2, R2 down in Charlottesville. And then you enter the elective period. I think it's just helpful for the students to kind of get a sense of the rhythm and the timing of things. Hopefully our listeners know by now that you will measure your life kind of in 2-month quarters or so as you go through this program, because you get new classes every couple of months. Yael, anything you would want to add about timing or just how people should think about some of the program?
I think the only thing I would add is that Darden, like sometimes students like to come into the program and know every single part of what they're going to do until they graduate. And I would encourage folks to keep an open mind, because as you learn from certain classes, it may shape how you think about other classes. You may rule yourself out. And Callie alluded to the fact that sometimes students come to a conversation and say, I'm not interested, or I'm not going to take it, and they change. People may kind of like to label themselves or think about themselves as like a quants or non-quants or more of a poet. I don't love those terms because I think all of us are a little bit of both. I know I'm sounding a little bit like the finale of the Breakfast Club, but I think we are a little bit all of the above. And students should allow themselves and enjoy kind of to be in the moment. And it's tricky with our professional degree students for sure, because we can only be in the moment so much. We do have to plan. We have to physically get to class at a certain time. We have to plan our work. We have to plan our lives, which I totally respect and appreciate. But I also want them to allow themselves to grow and to kind of enjoy that arc of professional growth that occurs while they get exposed to other things. So you've taken a core class. It could be, they're just experiencing operations now in their second year. Maybe you fall in love with it and you think you're really natural at it and you want to learn more. So suddenly now an elective on digital operations will be even more relevant and exciting to you than it was even a mere 5 weeks ago. So they haven't had their ethics class yet. And so only towards the middle of your second year, you're going to experience your ethics core class. Then it might shape how you think about that class and all the electives that may kind of excite you following that experience. So really let yourself kind of learn always and not kind of shut down prematurely by pre-committing and assuming that you have to stay with that. I'll also say that not only do you grow and learn in the classroom from the courses you get exposed to, but you learn from your classmates. And of course, your situation at work might change and evolve. And so hopefully you're reflecting and you're using either our team or the career services to kind of brainstorm, or some of the coaching that we provide to kind of brainstorm and to work with the many individuals in the community who are looking to support you to think out loud around what you need, what you don't need, what would be beneficial, what could complement it, and ultimately craft the ideal set of courses for you.
I love the idea that people are going to listen to this podcast and then go watch The Breakfast Club being like, what was that takeaway?
Yeah, it's a must. I have a feeling I have 2 teenagers, and knowing them, it's not on anybody's radar. So I think it's one that used to get overutilized, I guess, when some of us were growing up, but I think its popularity has decreased, and it's never too late to to wake up some of those John Hughes movies. Yeah.
Yael, I know you have a like a list of your top movies. Is the Breakfast
I
Club
have a deck. I have a PowerPoint
you
slide
have a
deck.
PowerPoint deck? Yes,
Yes.
correct.
Yeah.
Is Breakfast Club on there?
I don't think it is actually, from my recollection. I love it. It's a great movie, but a little bit like Shawshank, I think it's a little bit cliche. So, like you can only put one of those on your list probably. And I don't think I have either, but
Your number one is, of course.
my number one, of course, is The Lost Boys, which shouldn't be on anybody's list.
You have the two Coreys, a great soundtrack. What's not to
Exactly.
like?
Exactly. Hey, Kiefer Sutherland, like if you're gonna go down that route, you might as well spell it out. So yes.
And
Kiefer Sutherland is a vampire nonetheless, Yes.
No better vampire during that era than Kiefer Sutherland.
There you go.
So. Well, Callie, any final words? Anything you'd want our listeners to know about the Part-Time MBA academic experience?
Well, this is sort of self-serving, but it's just been an absolute pleasure. And it's been so fun for me and my Darden colleagues to be able to see this program launch and to have this first cohort of students who are so engaged. The last year's students, they were willing to be a part of this journey with us and help craft it together. And I think now just seeing the rewards of that with the second cohort, like I just really think it's only going to get better and better. So this is a community that I love so much. And I know because of seeing year over year students graduating, just spilling their hearts about what it has meant to them to be a part of Darden and to do it in a format that works for your life. Not to say that it's not, the flexibility does not necessarily mean that it's easy, but it is one that you've got groups of people rooting for you. And I think if you have the appetite to do it, give yourself the gift of Darden and come join us. That's what I would say, Brett.
I think that's a great ending to this podcast. Yael, Callie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking about electives and schedules, calendars, all these kinds of things. That's been so much fun. I think this is super helpful for people to kind of come inside the process and to understand it a little bit more from both the program side, but also from the student side. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Nate.
And that was my interview with Yael, Grushka-Cockayne, and Callie Thompson, two leaders of our professional degree programs here at the Darden School of Business. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's ExecMBA @darden.virginia.edu. Till next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.